I'm looking at the math and the path going forward, and I don't see it for Nikki Haley. I think she's run a great campaign, but I do think there is a message that's coming out from the voters, which is very clear. We need to unite around our eventual nominee, which is going to be Donald Trump, and we need to make sure we beat Joe Biden.
All right, that was RNC Chair Ronna McDaniel urging all Republicans to rally around Donald Trump after last night's big victory. Fox News contributor, former speechwriter for George W. Bush, Marc Thiessen, Washington Post columnist, too. Mark, your takeaway from what looks to be a 12-point victory for the president.
Solid win for President Trump, but also signal of general election weakness. As he pointed out last night, he's the only president to have won New Hampshire primary 3 times. The last time he won it against Bill Weld in 2020, 86-9. And he didn't win by that kind of margin last night.
Well, don't you think Nikki Haley's much more formidable than
formidable than Bill Weld? But the point being is that he's effectively the quasi-Republican incumbent. He never ceded the leadership of the Republican Party. He's offended that anyone challenged him for the Republican nomination. He thinks he should be the nominee. The last time you had a challenge like this to a Republican incumbent was in 1992 when Pat Buchanan challenged George H.W. Bush. He got 38% to Bush's 52%. The New York Times headline: Bush jarred in first primary. President Bush scored a less than impressive victory over Pat Buchanan. Haley did much better than Buchanan ever did. Why is this not jarring? You just showed the stats. 35% of Republicans in this state are not going to vote for Donald Trump. He's bleeding centrist. He needs those Haley voters. And right now, a lot of the Republican Party and independents are saying they're not going to vote for him. So it's a warning sign.
I could see what you're saying about you got to win over moderates, you got to win over independents to win the general, especially in all the battleground states. But I think to say the president's an incumbent, he's not on Air Force One. He's not using the machinery of the White House.
He's got a nicer plane.
And probably.
You've been on it.
Yeah. They don't have a situation room on it. But he does not have all that. So, I mean, we have not seen, in so many ways, it's unprecedented.
It is unprecedented. I mean, the last guy who did it was Grover Cleveland, who lost the White House and then ran 4 years later and won it back. But, look, he needs to win. How did Ronald Reagan beat Jimmy Carter? He beat him by winning the Reagan Democrats, who became Republicans over time. Right now, the Republican Party, to beat Joe Biden, the Republicans need the Haley Democrats. And if Trump can't win them over, he's not going to win the presidency.
I do also think you're shortchanging Nikki Haley's quality of her candidacy.
Oh, no, I'm not at all.
I think she's a lot, as much as I love Pat Buchanan, he was way out to the right.
Yeah.
I think she is more of a traditional conservative.
Yeah.
I want you to hear what you probably didn't see this, but Joe Biden had a speech yesterday. And you talk about extreme MAGA and how irresponsible. Listen to what he said.
I believe 2024 is going to be the most important election we've had since 1864. I mean it. And the reasons are clear. Democracy is on the ballot. Freedom is on the ballot. Like the freedom to choose, the freedom to vote, the freedom to love who you want, the freedom to go to work, go to school, go to your house of worship without fear of being gunned down by a weapon of war.
So if you vote for Donald Trump, there'll be a civil war. You'll be shot. You're no longer allowed to date, have same-sex marriage or anything. I mean, how could that not be less labeled anything except extreme?
And Kamala Harris will be president of the United States. Because if you think that man is going to be president 5 years from now, I've got a bridge to sell you.
But then she'd be reading the same prompt, the same extreme language.
Honestly, I would, if Trump wins the nomination, I would advise him to show up at the vice presidential debate and say, I'm going to debate her too, because she's the real candidate. But look, here's the problem. But this is what he has. So Joe Biden is the most unpopular president. If you look at the 538 average, the most unpopular president in the history of presidential polling, going back to Harry Truman at the end of World War II. Nobody has ever been this weak. No incumbent has ever been this weak. And if you look at the RCP average, Trump is leading him by 2-3 points, margin of error. Republican candidates should be crushing this guy who's so weak. The only play he has is MAGA, 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 because he's underwater on every issue. There's not a single issue that voters say is important to them that he's above water on. So this is the only play he has, and the problem is it's worked in the last 3 elections.
Which is sounding to Haley seems to do better, slightly better head-to-head, but Donald Trump does better than Ron DeSantis.
Yeah, sure.
Head-to-head against Joe Biden.
That is true.
So,
but marginally.
Yeah.
I mean, she's the only candidate who has shown in polls, in several polls, to have a double-digit lead over Biden. So, you know, the argument, her argument is, do you want to go with your heart or do you want to go with your head?
Right.
Do you want to win this election? Are you willing to risk 4 more years of Joe Biden, which will be the first Kamala Harris presidency? And you look at everything that's happening in the world, is that a risk you're willing to take? And a lot of Republicans are saying, yeah, because Trump is being under attack, and they want to rally around him.
Right. If you can't win the semifinals, you can't play in the finals.
That is true.
Right. Marc Thiessen, I'll talk to you on radio. Is that okay?
Absolutely. I'll be there.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.